Welcome to my show. As a guest here. Her name is Mia Lisa Fulgieri. Mrs. Mia Lisa, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mia Lisa. And also, thank you so much for the opportunity. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a licensed physiotherapist and a clinical supervisor. Can you please, Mrs. Mia Lisa, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Mia Lisa?
Sure. I'm doing really well. I'm living fully in my purpose, feeling peaceful, having just graded 40 10-page papers, and excited to take a break.
Exactly. It's definitely not easy. Life is definitely not easy. Writing more of scripts and books is definitely not easy as an author as a whole. So I also like to dive to the experience you've had, even from the book you've recently published, and also some questions that I have currently with you, Mrs. Mialisa. I would like to dive from the point of trauma. We do know that there are a lot of traumas in the life we are currently. We do know that there are a lot of experience. We have depression trauma. We have different several types, but I want to dive to the type of more of the relationship area, Mrs. Mia Lisa. So I would like to dive to the point of invisible scars, Mrs. Mia Lisa. In your own terms or in your own understanding, Mrs. Mia Lisa, how can you define invisible scars? And can you please, Mrs. Mia Lisa, explain how they differ from more obvious forms of trauma, Mrs. Mia Lisa?
Sure. Yeah. So invisible scars versus more visible forms of trauma, right? So, visible forms of trauma might be something like physical abuse that leaves a physical scar, right? Like abuse or like a bruise, or something like a sexual assault, right? That is acute, it has a start and an end point, right? Conversely, invisible scars that get created through relational trauma, you want to think of it as like many paper cuts over time, right? So, a really good metaphor for that is racial microaggression, right? So something that gets said in the workplace that is insidious, but it is grounded in racism, right? Relational trauma has the same experience. So if you think about the idea of being chronically unseen by a parent or a caregiver, that's something that might happen thousands of times during the course of your childhood. So a perfect example of that might be you're a kid and you're crying, you go to your caregiver and they say, stop crying, don't cry, or I'll give you something to cry about, right? If that happens over and over and over again, what you learn as a child is multiple things. It means crying is bad. I can't get what I need from my parent, and I can't, what will also end up happening is you won't be able to learn how to self-soothe a very common human emotion, such as sadness, right? So many things end up happening just from that tiny little moment that happens over and over again, right? You just learn crying is wrong. I'm wrong for feeling sad. And the scar that gets created is the way you see yourself, the way you see love, and the way you see the world.
Thank you so much for the insight, Mrs. Minas. Honestly speaking, what you said currently now is very, very powerful, to be honest, because that shows that no matter how we react, most especially when we do things or how we behave when it comes to even most of the time in relationship, it starts from that childhood. Childhood is very, very important. Those things that have happened during the childhood time, no matter how little it is, really tend to, affect one when someone has gotten into that adult stage. And it is very important someone to try his or her best to identify and know that these are the patterns that probably might have happened to me during my childhood time. It is very, very important. And that is why I would like to dive to that point, Mrs. Mialisa. I would like to dive to how do you think someone can know if, or how do you think they can tell if unresolved childhood pain is still affecting probably the current relationship that they are dealing with? And and what step or what first step do you personally think they can take to begin to heal from this trauma, Mrs. Mialisa?
So I'm going to say something a little bit bold, right? You're asking me like, how does someone know if they are experiencing what I just outlined? What I would say is we are all experiencing pain from childhood. Every single one of us. And the reason why is because we are all raised by imperfect people. Our caregivers and our parents didn't have to be horrible people in order to create harm, right? We're imperfect people, right? And unfortunately, mental health and healing and knowledge about trauma is a very newly understood concept in our world. And so, what that means is that generations and generations before us were harmed and did not get the right support that they needed. And so when you don't get the right support you need, you pass on your pain to the next generation completely unintentionally, right? This is not a calling out of anyone, it's a calling in, right? So to answer the second part of your question, what do? You acknowledge that it's true and it's real, what I'm saying, right? That's the first step. The first step is self-awareness, and that's where I see the largest barrier to entry is people's fundamental misunderstanding of what trauma is. People think it's loud, they think it's flashy, they think it's a car crash, they think it's an earthquake, they think it's their parents, beating the hell out of them. And let's be clear, that is trauma certainly, but the trauma I'm speaking about is small. So oftentimes we think about trauma as these big moments, the earthquake, right? If your parents beat the hell out of you, right? These very obvious traumas, which are certainly trauma, right? But relational trauma is really the experience of being chronically unseen and not tended to in the way you specifically needed to be tended to, right? So that is why I'm saying that all of us have experienced that in some way or another. And then the first step towards healing is the self-awareness, right? The belief that what I am saying, me, Melissa Fulgieri, is true, right? So the biggest barrier to entry is that when people think of trauma, they think, no, that's not me. My childhood was fine. It wasn't perfect, but it was fine. Or I had food to eat, I had a roof over my head. Nothing was that bad. That is the biggest barrier to entry because what you're doing is you're comparing your pain, your legitimate pain, to someone else who you in your mind think had it worse off, right? That is the thing that stops people from getting the support they need more often than not. It's comparing your pain to another and saying, my healing isn't legitimate. My pain isn't as bad because someone else had it worse. That is the biggest barrier to entry I see.
Hmm. Honestly speaking, what you also said in those areas are also very beautiful, and it is very, very powerful. In those perspectives, even I can even agree with you that even my own personal parents are also not all, perfect in some circumstances when they were also raising, I will have to be honest with you, during my own time, my mom would say every single time you have to be in the house, and that is how I am currently. I'm always in the house. So that is how it has developed. So every single areas, there is no parent that is obviously really perfect. So every single person will always have that pattern that definitely affects one another in in the way we really react in our time today, which shows that the childhood is the most important area when it comes to a lot of things. And that is why when it comes to probably areas like relationship stuff like that, we do have to know how to try to understand the other side, try to know how to just get the perspective, because different background is very powerful to really and it really takes time, but someone have to just have the sense of patience. I really thank you so much for the insight, Mrs. Mialisa. And I also like to dive to the point of society, community. We do know that there are not much of a community currently in our time. Currently, we're only more on the digital area. But in your own perspective, with your experience you've had, Mrs. Mialisa, how do you think society perpetuates the silence or probably the shame around relational trauma, especially in men, most especially in men or marginalized communities, Mrs. Mialisa? Well, I'm located in Lagos State in Africa, Mrs.
Nigeria.
Mialisa. Yes.
In Nigeria. Okay, fantastic. So, um, American context, and right, I only have limited experience in West Africa. So you'll have to tell me if this is cross-cultural, but at least in my experience in America, men are raised to see vulnerability as the antithesis of masculinity, right? So if a man is vulnerable, they are inherently seen as less masculine. The worst thing a man could be when they are raised is to be feminine. And being feminine includes being vulnerable, needing help, being dependent, right? So men get stuck because they are raised to see vulnerability, which is literally the antidote to healing, as feminine, right? And so this is why in the States, at least, we're having this male loneliness epidemic because men are not raised to prioritize friendships. They're not raised to prioritize intimacy, only intimacy in their romantic partnerships, right? So most men in the States are getting their intimacy needs met from, I'm talking about straight cis het men, right? So most men are raised to pour all of their intimacy needs into their romantic partnership, whereas women are socialized to value sisterhood, which is based on vulnerability and interdependence, right? So getting support from your girlfriend, calling her up and being like, "Oh my God, this just happened. Can you help me?" Right? Men are raised the exact opposite, right? So this is another reason why relational trauma gets passed down generation to generation because men, American men, are being raised to be stoic, to lean out, right? To be conflict avoidant. And so what we're experiencing is one of the biggest skills gap in emotional literacy because of the way that men are raised, right? So that's the first part. Now, marginalized communities, right, that you spoke about, what's the barrier for them? The barrier for them is that they're not getting their basic needs met, right? We can't talk about healing until we talk about hunger. If people are going to bed hungry, they're not going to be talking about self care, right? Because they're not getting their basic needs met. If you don't have a home, if you don't have proper medical care, if you don't know where your next meal is coming, you do not have your basic needs met. And so we can't even talk about healing if we're starting at you not getting your basic needs met, right? So that's the American context. I'm not sure if that's cross cultural in your experience in Lagos.
Definitely. I will say it's a little bit different here. This place is really loud. I will have to be honest with you. But definitely, we do know that there are lots of, men that are probably having this type of issues and also marginalized community. We have to also check on ourselves. And also, that is a very, very beautiful insight when it comes to areas, when it comes to men that are needed to, get some certain experience when it comes to, and most especially, it really affects when it comes to the point when they are in a relationship. As you said earlier, women are more of socialized and stuff like that. It definitely has a lot of effects in a very huge way. But we definitely hope for the best. I have to be honest with you, we hope for the best, and we hope that more great things and more probably American men really wise up and everything really blow up. I have to be honest with you. So thank you so much very much for the insights, Mrs. Mialisa. And also, Mrs. Mialisa, I would like to dive to the point of educators, parents, and also what you've done. Very beautiful thing, which you've written a book on this perspective, and how you think they can also, create more safer environments that also prevents this relational trauma from, forming in its first place. So, how do you think educators, teachers, or even leaders create a safer environment? How do you think they can create a safer environment that prevents relational trauma from forming in the first place, Mrs. Mialisa?
Yeah, so the question, right? How do leaders of this world create safe environments? The answer is to find safety within yourself. That is the answer. If if we don't experience safety within ourselves, we cannot transmit safety to another. And what that means is if you don't have self awareness, if you don't have emotional intelligence or emotional literacy, you are going to project your unhealed wounds onto people, right? Think about passive aggressive comments. Think about the little jabs, right, that people around you might give you, right? There's this saying in the States, hurt people, right? So if you haven't done the very confronting, introspective work to look in the mirror and go, where are my pain points? Where are my wounds? How does that show up in the world? How do I project my pain onto others in the form of passive aggression, regular old aggression, ignoring, avoidance, anxious attachment, right? If you don't do that, you are going to continually move through the world in an unintentional way, and that is going to create harm wherever you go. So, if you're a teacher, if you're an educator, if you're a priest, if you're a any leader there is, politician, educator, healer, whatever, if you haven't done the work to look in the mirror and see where you're in pain, you will transmit that pain onto others 10 times out of 10.
Honestly speaking, I also want to use this opportunity to sincerely thank you for that insight, Mrs. Mia Lisa. And that is just the truth. And that is just the truth. If we can't fix ourselves, I don't think it will be easy for us, even probably control a lot of people. And that is the beauty of this world. But if we can see ourselves, know our strengths, know our weakness, know the good and bad within ourselves, and find ways we could definitely try our best to fix it, definitely those pain is gone. You know how to manage it, and the person know how he or she can react in those circumstances. Then he or she, when it bring him or herself outside, then definitely there will be a lot of progression. It's not as a lot of pain is being transmitted or a lot of anxiety is being transmitted, which really makes the energy really come down. So it makes the energy just continue to emerge in its own way. That is a very, very powerful and beautiful insight, to be honest with you, Mrs. Mia Lisa. Lastly, Mrs. Mia Lisa, for those who feel like they are broken, we have a lot of people who are feeling like they're broken and who are feeling like, I don't think I am a person who can really love very well, who can really give that kind of intimacy or care and love with another person. A lot of people are thinking that way. And probably, what message do you think you could give to someone who feels like they are too broken to be loved, or they can't be loved, they can't give love to one another or be loved too well in their own circumstances, Mrs. Mialisa?
So, the first thing that I would like to say to people who think they are too broken is, I am so sorry you feel that way, right? That is such a common feeling for humans to believe that they are too broken. I see it and I hear it every single day. What I would tell you is that my clients, their ages range from 20 to 78, right? It is too late to do this work only one time. It's too late when you're dead. Until that, there is time. There is time because I see it all the time. I see people healing in their 80s and I see people healing in their 20s, right? So most people think that they're too far gone. They think they're too broken. But what I know about healing is that, right, we think trauma is the only thing that changes our brain, right? It makes us feel broken. But what we also know from a neuroscience perspective is that healing also changes our brain, right? It takes 10,000 repetitions to create a new habit, to create a new neural pathway, right? Trauma changes our brain, right? Because when we feel chronically unseen 10,000 times, we learn, oh my God, I'm too much. I'm too sensitive. I'm too needy. I'm broken. I'm bad, whatever it is, right? When we start to heal, it is the same process. It takes 10,000 repetitions to heal. right? And the way that we heal are in these tiny moments. They're in the moments where I say to you, hey, what you said just hurt my feelings. And when you respond and you say, I am so sorry, let's talk about it, that is healing. Do it 9,999 more times, and you will create a new neural pathway. It just takes discipline, it takes compassion for yourself and others, and it takes resolve and belief that it's possible. And I know it's possible because I sit here and I tell you that I did it myself.
Hmm. Honestly speaking, what you said currently now is very, very powerful. And definitely, it is not easy. Every single thing
No.
that we want to just try to do in life, it is not easy, but we just have to deal with this sense of brokenness, because brokenness most of the time come from the sense of emotions. And if we can deal with that, then definitely we'll definitely be happy in the life that we'll find ourselves. We'll definitely be able to communicate, strive, and also engage with every single person we meet within ourselves. We won't have this type of blockage or grudges within each other. We just have to open up and have the sense of genuine communication. If someone is hurt, let people know I'm hurt and I'm not happy with this, and definitely it's give the sense of healing. And when someone is broken, definitely, if someone can definitely try to just give his or herself time, as you said earlier, to just give this recovery, it takes time, but definitely, if someone can do it, as you said, more times, continuously, continuous, and continuously, it will definitely drive results. And the most funniest part is that if the person has conquered that situation, I think it will never be an issue when it comes back again, because one has done it before and he or she has recovered from it. And that is the beauty of life. We have to just recover from every single thing. Our body, I used to say it very well, our body is just like a machine. We just have to know how to use it. When we can use it very well, then definitely we're great and we definitely be happy. Lastly, Mrs. Mealisa, there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Mialisa, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Mialisa?
Yeah, it's so funny. It's such a beautiful question, and it makes me think about how I recently went back to Italy, where my ancestors are from, and watching the way that the Southern Italian people behaved healed me in a way I did not expect. They were fiery, they were passionate, they let their anger show. They were loud. They did not do small talk. They were serious. They were intelligent. And I swear to you, I had this spiritual moment of being like, oh my God, here I am. There were so many parts of me that were snuffed out growing up because of the body I exist in, right? Young white woman in America, right? There were so many parts of me, my rage, my anger, my sadness, that were seen as bad, wrong, too much, too dangerous. And when I went back to Italy and I saw these women so mad, so passionate, so profound. I was like, there I am. There I
Definitely.
am.
Definitely, I completely agree with you. Honestly speaking, I have to be honest with you. Firstly, I really realized when I saw Mia Lisa Fulgieri, I do knew that you will be from a background in Italy, but definitely I was 100% correct. And that is the beauty of life. You know, our background really shows who we really are. We see every beauty and that sense of feeling, and that is how powerful it is, honestly speaking. That sense of feeling that I am really at home is always there, and we see our people, we feel our people, we see the background, we see how we react and things like that. That shows the beauty of the life that we are currently. We do know that we are always in a lot of situations and things like that, but we do know that when we see this kind of culture and a lot of things during our forefathers' time, there are a lot of beautiful things that do happen that time. And when one see it, and that shows the beauty of the life that we have, and it shows the sense of calmness and humility that we definitely need. And that is what I personally see you seeing during that time you went to your background area. And that is very bitter. I'm so happy you had the opportunity to go there during the life you have come for in this time currently. Thank you so much, Mrs. Mesa. I also want to use this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity and the time. Honestly speaking, I never believed this will happen, but it's actually happened. So it's definitely an opportunity and a time and that you've given to me to speak on this perspective or this trauma which has come to the area of relational. Thank you so much, Mrs. Mia Lisa.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, Mrs. Mia Lisa. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye.